we had a good session this past session, and I think that will provide a great baseline of where to begin our work this coming year.
MDOT presents the Extra Mile Podcast, Legislative Session.
Got to have the ability to get that product to market.
As long as you're performing, we want to be behind you pushing.
Welcome in to another edition of the Extra Mile Podcast Legislative Session presented by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. I'm MDOT Deputy Director of Public Affairs, Paul Catul. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Will Kraft. He handles government and constituent affairs here at the agency. And last week, we had a really nice conversation with Associated Press reporter Emily Wagster-Pettis. Go back and listen if you haven't already. Will, excited to get into the meat of these legislative episodes. Let's just dive into it. We have Speaker of the Mississippi House of Representatives, Philip Gunn, in the House with us today. A little quick info on Speaker Gunn if you don't already know about him. He began serving in the Mississippi House in 2004, became Speaker in 2012, and he represents District 56, which includes Hinds and Madison counties. Speaker Gunn, very busy time of the year. As always, we appreciate you making time for us.
Well, thank you. Never too busy for the MDOT folks. They're very important to the state and what we do, and I'm glad I was able to squeeze in an opportunity to come and be with you fellas.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciated.
Yes, we do. We'll just dive right in here real quick, getting into things. The session is getting started, getting kicked off. We'll real quickly just kind of look back last year. Phenomenal session. You guys truly took care of the department in every form and fashion. We got money, we got employees, we got good things and projects going on. I want to just point to the map here. I know some of our folks, if you're listening, you might not be able to see it, but we got a great map here showing 2022, all of the 950 plus million lettings we got going on construction all around the state. The map looks great, really geographically equitable based on data, and getting these projects out, it still looks wonderful. Got a bunch of projects coming up. That House bill, our appropriation, that's tied to so much of this good stuff going on, generates with you guys. We appreciate it very much.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm so proud of what we've been able to do over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, actually. I would go back to 2018. Special session of 2018 was in August, I think, of that year. We did 3 or 4 major items during that special session, the lottery being one, the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund being one. But the big one, as it pertains to you guys, was I forget what we called it, but it was a road bill. I keep calling it the road bill. And we took a third of the use tax. At that time, it was use tax generated about $330 million a year. It may be more than that now. But at that time, it was about $120 million. And we devoted $50 million a year to cities, $50 million a year to counties, and $20 million to a bridge fund. So that's every year. And I think at that time, the number of bridges around the state that were condemned or posted was approaching 700. I don't think it was quite at 650, something like that, 670, somewhere around there. And I'm told that number is now down to below 300, maybe around 288 or something like that. So you can see over the last 4 years the progress that has been made because of that bill alone.
No doubt.
And it's going to continue. And those dollars continue to pour into our cities. They continue to pour into our counties, into the bridge program. And we did $80 million out of the lottery to roads and bridges. We did $100 million last year, I think, to one of the programs, which results in this map that you're talking about. So I'm proud of the fact that the legislature and the House particularly, which is where I serve, and these bills that you mentioned, generated in the House. I have to give credit to Trey Lamar and Jason White and Mark Baker back in 2018, who were kind of the authors of that bill that I'm talking about. But I say all that to say that I hope that reflects the commitment of the legislature to provide the infrastructure to our state. I've told this story repeatedly as I have spoken around the state this year. Last year I had a guy from the Association of Equipment Manufacturers in my office. He's from Washington, D.C. His job is to be a site selector. He goes around the country and he looks for places to recommend for companies to put their business. And I said, what's the number one thing you look for when you're being a site selector? He said, workforce. You got to have a qualified, dedicated, reliable workforce. I said, what's the second thing? He said, infrastructure. So that just shows the importance of infrastructure in the prosperity of our state. Your state doesn't even get on the radar screen, doesn't even get on the list if you can't answer a good workforce, provide a good workforce, and you can't provide a good infrastructure. So it results in not only in convenience for our citizens, but it is a factor that plays into the economic prosperity of the state. And when you look at bridges, for example, farmers, loggers, they got to be able to get their crops to market.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have bridges. You got to have roads. We did raise the harvest permit threshold from 5% to 10%, which gives them a little more tolerance on how much they can get to market. So all these things play into economic prosperity of our state, job creation. And so I think the House has embraced that. We've passed these bills that you and I talked about, bills that's resulted in this map, the other things that we've been doing, and hopefully it'll end up resulting in a good infrastructure system. And infrastructure is more than just roads and bridges.
Sure.
It's electricity, it's provision of gas and water and all those things that go along with it, but it's one factor.
Absolutely.
So Speaker Gunn has an orange tie on. We're looking forward to lots of orange barrels going up around the state. Lots of construction,
well,
right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's pretty good.
So looking forward.
That's why I wore this. I was thinking about
sure.
I was thinking about orange barrels this morning when I was getting dressed.
Knew it. So it's nice to look back at last session. So from the House perspective, from your perspective, anything with MDOT going on this legislative session, what are you looking at?
Well, I think it's something we always, we're in very close communications with Brad White. He does a great job, I think, for being an advocate and representative for MDOT, for the infrastructure, a close relationship with all three of your commissioners. And we are in constant communications with them about the needs around the state. As you always know, it boils down to how much money do you have.
Sure.
And we have other needs we have to meet. We have a big budget, and health care is a big issue moving forward. Education is a big issue. We have been looking at tax cuts, trying to find ways to put more money back into the pockets of our citizens, which helps every one of us
right.
and every one of your employees. I've been a big advocate for trying to find ways to allow our people to keep more of their hard-earned money. When you do that, they have a better ability to provide for themselves, raise their families, improve their quality of life, give more to their church. They spend more in the communities, which those economic dollars turn over as they purchase more goods and services. So those are some of the other things that we have to balance out. But looking at roads and bridges is always a topic of conversation. So we'll have to just see how all these things play together. At the end, as you know, we do the budget usually at the end of the session, around the end of March, middle to the end of the March is when it all comes together, and we decide what monies are going where, and we'll just have to see.
There you go.
Understandably. And Emergency Road and Bridge Program, another one of those gems that came out of 2018, the special session you mentioned. Any conversations going on about that right now?
Oh, yeah. We've already
Sure.
had conversations about that. Now, no decisions have been made,
Sure.
but we're aware that it's there, and we're going to continue to look at what we can do there.
I know it's one that, again, you guys love and the folks out there love. It's been very advantageous. Another one you just touched on a little bit, the tax situation. I know it's been a staple of your time as the speaker. Any new or update on that conversation about changing the tax structure, Sam?
Well, one of the things that we advocated for last year was the complete elimination of the personal income tax. There are numerous advantages to that,
Sure.
so we don't have time to talk about, but one of the things I think that makes a point is that you look at the census. You know, we do a census every 10 years. We did one in 2020. You look at the two states that had the highest growth in population, Texas and Florida. You look at the two fastest growing cities in America, Nashville, Tennessee, and Austin, Texas. You look at the two states that lost the most population, I think were California and Illinois. So I'm not saying this is the only reason people move, but it's interesting that the states that had the highest growth were the states that don't have an income tax. And the states that had the most loss in population were some of the states that had the highest tax rates. It is a factor
Definitely
when
can't
you
ignore
consider, when people are considering where they're going to live, where they're going to move. I would love to our young people to enjoy a career that involves no income tax to the state. It's a selling point we can give to the young people of our state, people your age, who, when they're looking for a place to live, if they know they can keep all of the money that they earn, at least from a state standpoint, it is attractive.
Absolutely.
And it's one factor that they would consider when they're looking to raise their families. We've done analysis on that. It shows that our gross domestic product would increase by $380 million a year if we got rid of, that's our wealth. The wealth of the state would increase $380 million a year if we got rid of the personal income tax. I could go on and on with the advantages of that. Now, a lot of people say, well, if you get rid of the income tax, how are we going to cover the costs, roads and bridges, for example, that result from the reduction of revenue that comes from eliminating the sales tax. We had the income tax. We had plans on how to make that happen, and I won't get into the gory details of that. But I think it behooves us to look at reducing the tax burden on our citizens. If we don't get to full elimination, we get as close to that as we can. So those are going to be conversations to be had this year. The reason I say that is we have $1 billion of recurring revenue. Last year, our budget, I think, was about $6.3 billion. We had level funded the budget. We'd given a teacher pay raise. We had filled the rainy day fund. We had fixed the retirement system. We did a few other things, and all that added up to $6.3 billion. So we had spent money on everything that we could think needed to be spent, and it was $6.3 billion. You know how much we collected? $7 billion.
Okay.
We collected almost $800 million more from our citizens than we could even spend. Now, my contention was, let's give some of it back.
Yeah.
We can spend some of it, yeah, but we're collecting $800 million more from our citizens than we even can figure out how to spend. Now, you can always spend it on stuff, but that's not responsible governing. That's not conservative governing. We're collecting more than we're spending. We can afford to give some of it back to the citizens. And we've learned that $1 billion of that is recurring. So my contention is let's look for ways to give some tax relief to our citizens. That would help them. That helps the state. And hopefully it'll attract more citizens. And, we were one of 3 states that lost population. And we don't want to be in that category. So that's kind of a brief synopsis on the tax deal.
Pretty good.
Very informative, for sure.
I appreciate it.
So I didn't mention at the top of the show, but you recently announced your retirement as Speaker. Right. Know there's some more work to be done, but want to kind of look back at some of the highlights of your career as Speaker and kind of what you think are some of your most important accomplishments there.
Well, I think the number one thing, as one who is conservative, one who is a very big on the pro-life cause, protecting the lives of the unborn, the overturning of Roe versus Wade has to be at the top of the list. Sure. That bill that resulted in the overturning of Roe versus Wade started in the House chamber, actually started in the Republican caucus of the House chamber. And so back in 2018, we brought that bill out. We passed it. It did not, little did we know that would be the bill in 2022 that the United States Supreme Court would use to overturn Roe versus Wade. That's probably the biggest historic accomplishment in our lifetimes, and certainly our political lives. I've told my caucus that you will never do anything bigger in your political lives than leading the effort to overturn Roe versus Wade. So I would have to point to that. The tax cut last year, was the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Mississippi. I think that works to the benefit of our citizens. We did the largest teacher pay raise last year in the history of our state. All of those 3 generated from the House of Representatives. We've protected Second Amendment rights. I jokingly talked to the lobbyist for the NRA not long ago, and she said, y'all are the most gun-protected state in America. She said, y'all have done more to protect gun rights than anywhere else. So, a big Second Amendment believer myself, and glad we were able to do that. So those are just some of the things that come to mind off the top of my head that I think were big accomplishments that will anytime you serve in public service, you go in with the mindset that I want to make Mississippi better. And when it comes to the time for me to end, I want to look back and say, Mississippi is in a better place today than it was, when I started. I think every elected official, wherever they serve, has that as their goal. whether you serve in the city council, whether you serve in state government, whether you serve on the school board, you want to say, I made a difference. Things are better now than when I found them. And I hope that's the case. I guess history will decide that for me rather than, than myself. But I do believe some of these things that I mentioned have made Mississippi a better place. And hopefully it'll put us on the right trajectory to a better quality of life for our citizens.
There you go. We certainly appreciate your service here.
That's right. Yeah, I appreciate your leadership. Everything you just mentioned. Very, very proud of those accomplishments. Although I played no part in them, very happy to be a citizen of Mississippi. Love the state, man. I think we get a lot of bad rap, but I think it's just unfortunately the social media age. And come see us. Come visit. I met a guy who moved in from North Carolina yesterday. He said everything he heard was wrong.
That's right.
Love
That's
it.
right. And I tell people all the time, if you come here and give it a fair chance, you will like it. And I can tell you story after story. I was in Bay St. Louis not long ago, and there were people from Minnesota, New Jersey, and New York who had uprooted from those places and moved to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. It's where they had chosen
You had them all in
to
one spot,
spend their
too?
retirement, all in that one spot.
That's pretty good.
I got a guy in my Sunday school class that just moved here from California. He came to visit his son. He liked it, uprooted from California, moved to Mississippi. I got a friend in Oxford who was very hesitant about moving to Mississippi. That's just 30 years ago. They moved to Mississippi. His wife did not want to come. Sadly, they ended up divorcing, and he left the state. And to this day, she still lives in Oxford, Mississippi.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Her impressions were completely wrong. And she came and she gave it a fair chance. And if you're looking for a place where you can instill good values in your children and raise your family with a good quality of life, and those things are important to you, this is a great place to be.
No
I can't
doubt.
imagine trying to raise a child in Nashville, Tennessee, or Dallas, Texas, or any of those other places.
Too many skyscrapers for me.
Too much traffic.
Yeah.
Sounds stressful.
It is.
Absolutely. Well, here on this conversation, it kind of moves us right into the next topic here. We're going to talk about a little bit the future for you. If you got any plans, I mean, it sounds like you could be the number one advocate of, Move Mississippi almost. We'll get you out there just recruiting folks.
Well, I have, as you said, I've decided not to seek re-election to the House, but it does not mean that I've dismissed the possibility of future public service.
Sure.
I will be looking for other ways that I can serve the state, and we'll just see what the Lord has in store for me. I'm actually just stepping out on faith, trusting that He will guide me and put me where He wants me to serve, which could be in future elected office. I haven't dismissed that possibility at all.
Well, we certainly hope you don't.
Well, thank you.
You're going to spend some time at least, you got to get an extra couple hunting trips in or fish or something, right? Anything in the...
Yeah, well, if those opportunities arise, I'm always available and ready for a hunting trip or
I'm sure they will.
any environmental study that I can
That's
go
it.
on.
See, he knows.
Love it. Love it. Hey, Will, let's just go ahead and hit the question. I
The
know
one?
asked last year, but
That's
we
right.
can update it.
We're going to change it a little bit for you. We like to talk about food. We like to eat. As a state, as a people, as a podcast, we like to eat. We kind of went on favorites last year, asking most of our guests a favorite restaurant, which you're certainly more than welcome to share if you have a favorite. But this year, I want to ask a new place. Have you had anywhere new recently? Something new that kind of jumped out at you? Or maybe aware of something new that just opened that you're looking forward to trying?
I will say this. I say this everywhere I go. We are very fortunate in Mississippi to have, on a per capita basis, some of the best eating places for a town or a state our size. I say town, I'm talking about the Jackson area. But when visitors come to see me, I always enjoy taking them to some of the local restaurants that we have, and they are always impressed. I mean, on a per capita basis for a city our size or metro area our size or a state our size, we have some of the – I tell people all the time, there's a reason Mississippi's the most obese state in the country, and I can show you why. And I had a guy from New York here this week, actually, and he wanted to experience a true Southern cultural experience.
Okay.
So I took him to Mama Hamill's
There we go.
up in Madison, and he was blown away, I call it the Disney World of restaurants because, at Disney World you pay at the gate and you ride all you want. Have y'all been to Disney World before?
It's been a long
Oh, yeah.
time.
It's been a while, but
But you pay at the
Familiar.
front, and then you get to ride all you want, and that's their arrangement up there. You pay at the door. It's $13, and you ride all you want, and you can eat.
Which is dangerous.
And when you go through the line, by the time you get the vegetables and the salads, your plate is full, and then you get to the meats, and there's nowhere else to put the meat but just on top, and you just pile it up on top, and then you get the barbecue sauce, and you just smear that
whole
on top, and then you just eat your way from the top to the bottom.
And then, of course, there's a delicious section of desserts.
And then you got to hit the dessert.
Got to.
And I don't go to the little pitiful little cup they give you that's about the size of that cup. I go back to the original, the big plate, the front of the line, and get the big plate and pile about 4 desserts on there. The
probably
ice
smart.
cream, the peach cobbler with the ice cream, and the bread pudding, and the head banana pudding last week, and I got all 4. And
That's awesome. Yeah, it's about the only place you can get the soft serve, the pull
Yeah.
machine
Oh, yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So that's always a highlight.
So
but-
not new to you, but new definitely to your buddy. You took him, had an experience at Mama Hamill's for Mr. New York. That's pretty good.
Yeah, oh yeah, he was blown away. He
I'm
said,
sure.
This is what it's all about. New places in town, I don't know of any that come to mind really. I kind of get in a rut, but I'll eat anything. I
do the same thing.
The only thing I don't eat is pickles. I got sick on a pickle when I was a kid, and it just kind of turned. So anything with pickles in it, I kind of avoid. And then some people put pickles in tuna salad or chicken salad or coleslaw, and so that I don't like that. But other than a pickle, I'll eat anything.
I could live without pickles. I'm okay.
Fair enough.
pretty
Noted.
good.
I remember Mama Hamill's back in Matt when it was just the shack, and now how
right.
far it's come. So that's a great choice right there. Speaker Gunn, just one more thing. How can constituents get in contact with you in your office?
My number at the Capitol is 601-359-3300. That is the direct line to my office. So any concerns that they have, they can call, and someone will answer the phone. And or if they're too busy, they'll get a voice message, but they can leave a voice message, which is checked every day.
Right.
So any concerns they have, I'm always willing to try to help them if I can.
And I'm
There you
sure
go.
if you guys out there want to hear more about the tax plan or the other things that the speaker mentioned that they've worked on in the past few years and that they're working on this session, obviously you'll just give it a Google. Philip Gunn, Speaker of the House. It will take you right to the web page. Be that on the Capitol website, or I'm sure the personal campaign and Facebook, those other pages. Check them out. See what all they got going on. I know you guys hear a lot of complaints and wants and wishes, but hey, he's done a great job. So feel free to give him a shout out of praise and thanks on those medias. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. We appreciate you being
I
here.
appreciate the
Absolutely.
opportunity to be with y'all. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to come and visit. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Great conversation. So we'll just go ahead and wrap things there. So thanks to our listeners out there for listening to the Extra Mile podcast. You can listen, you can watch by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile. Follow us on social media at Mississippi DOT on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. We want to thank our producer, Katie Hornsby, our editor, Drew Hall. They do a ton of work behind the scenes. Just close with that. Remember to drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.